Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened very carefully to the testimony, and I do not relish this vote. I have voted to confirm hundreds of governor's appointees, and I can say that I've enjoyed working with most of them, and I rarely voted no. The appointee in question, as Senator Goodman talked about, his experience and a good reputation. The vote was before the Kearney case transpired. I would have likely voted in the affirmative. The IG report says that the nominee lied under oath. At the very least, it seems she was less than transparent, even though it may have been caused by outside factors. I believe the Director of Public Safety has to be beyond reproach. Just for this reason, that I do not think the nominee can actually serve in this position, and I vote yes on the motion not to confirm.
Thank you very much, Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Time and time again throughout this testimony and reading these interviews from the Inspector General, particularly when we're dealing with all these law enforcement folks, I keep thinking back to something I read in high school. I don't remember much about what I read in high school. There's one line I had to read Geoffrey Chaucer's Tales, Medieval Stories. And there's one thing I always remember about that, and it was referring to Catholic priests who were doing things that they really shouldn't have been doing. And the statement was made, if gold rusts, what is poor iron going to do? Well, we all know that gold doesn't rust. But if my point here is we're talking about the executive agency that's responsible for public safety that should be beyond reproach. And so, quite frankly, I think we have a high bar here because normally we do vote to confirm those folks that come along. And, you know, right before when we broke for session yesterday, I still plan to vote to confirm Cathy I truly did. But as we've gone through this, you know, I kind of, as best I can, it seems like you can kind of separate the folks that come in and testify into two groups. You've got what I would term roughly as being kind of the professional side, and then there's also the political side. Well, the professional side, you know, we heard from Mr. Thompson. Earlier, I was fortunate to sit in and caught some of Ms. Henderson's testimony, Mr. Booker's testimony several weeks ago. I didn't catch all of it. I was not on the committee at that time. But I certainly got to catch Mr. Thompson's testimony, Mr. Combo's testimony, Mr. Mack, and Mr. Costas. I found particularly Mr. Combo's and Mr. Mack's testimony to be the most compelling. I put them, you know, all those folks in this category as being, you know, on the professional side here and with their professional opinions. On the other hand, you know, we heard from Colonel Diggin, Collins Taylor. I quite frankly, I'd like to hear, there's a couple other people I'd actually like to hear from. I have read their testimony. Mr. Mannion, Lieutenant Mannion would be probably at the top of that list. And it just seems, trying to keep an open mind to this, it just seems a whole lot easier to believe what the professional folks had said. To believe much of what I heard on the political side, it was like you kind of had to twist and contrive to believe that, you know, everything was true. Now, the same side though, I look at this and I say, well, this person is not this. This appointee has seems to be a solid background, you know, experience. It seems like she would have the qualifications to do the job. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt on this, but you know, at the same time, I'm seeing it seems like, you know, in testimony I'm hearing kind of a blame toss at the reporter that, you know, in fact, the reporter that broke the story was being blamed for some of the coverage, and then attacking the Inspector General. I mean, I have a hard time when you have people in law enforcement attacking, you know, because you don't like the result of law enforcement, so you attack the person who did the investigation. I would expect more out of people who have done a career in law enforcement. So, you know, it just seems, all that taken into account, and as you've heard me, you've been in here, you've heard me raise this time and time again, that, you know, we have in this room right now is someone who spent over 30 years in the highway patrol, you know, relieved of his duties about a week before his retirement. Near as I can tell, never really given a good reason, if any reason. There's since been an investigation that we heard from Mr. Thomas, seemed to exonerate him, but yet no apology. So what morale would that have to be for all the troopers out there? Which I don't know the exact number. I heard a number of 1,500, 2,000. I would have to think if I was part of that organization, there would be a real morale problem when things like that are going on, and that's certainly part of what leadership would be about. You know, in her favor, I've had people call and say that they've worked with her in the past, had good experiences, and with Cathy Collins-Taylor, and she did. Their interaction with her was very positive. At the same time, I haven't heard from, I didn't get any calls from any of the state troopers that I know in my highway patrolmen that I know in my district calling in support of her either. So, taking all that into consideration, accordingly, I'm going to vote not to confirm, so that would be a yes vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This confirmation process, I take very seriously. As I look at the situation, I have people I've known from my prior jobs on both sides of this. In making this decision, I dealt upon that experience that I had in the past. And that past experience of being in law enforcement, of being a prosecutor, as well as working with the courts. I've seen many trials looking at the witnesses' demeanor, the way they act. I read the transcripts, read the OIG reports, the so-called white papers, response papers, white papers again. And in looking at all that, you have to look to what the weight of the evidence is, and you look at it objectively, and you look at it fairly. You also look to the witnesses to see what they have to gain, see if there's any interest they can do. Dovetailing on Senator Stewart, you look at some of the ones that are professional versus the political, see what one has to gain by coming in and testifying. These are all things you can do when you're down at the courthouse and you see a lot of people, you see all these trials, you're in these trials, you pick these things up from people. And these are things you make decisions on while trial lawyer. After looking at all this information and delving upon that experience I've had down in the courts, and seeing the many trials and being in the many trials I've been in, as counsel, I cannot in good conscience feel that the current director can effectively lead Department of Public Safety. So therefore, I do not feel that she can lead for the Department of Public Safety, so therefore I will vote yes on the motion as before us.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. First of all, let me thank the staff members from both parties that have been so diligently assisting in this matter. We thank all those who have sat in attendance to these matters. Appreciate the patience. We thank the minority members. We thank the majority members. We thank all of the witnesses and all those who participated. Let me particularly thank Senator Stewart and Senator Carey for sitting in for both days here so that they could hear the full testimony before we do their action. I made that motion with a very heavy heart and painful deliberation. After all, I'm the current FOP legislator of the year. My heart says one thing, but my mind says another. Uncharacteristically, last night I actually sat up for hours thinking about this. I found myself even praying. But at the end of the day, the prayers didn't come true because I have to cast this vote. Cathy Collins-Taylor is an inherently good person who has been thrust into a bad situation. Her service as a police officer is not an issue. And frankly, I believe the folks who have just stood up